Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Den, your channel for record collecting by record collectors. I'm Nick. Today I'm talking about why I prefer vinyl records. There's a bunch of links down below. Make sure to check them out. There's links for the Vinyl Den Facebook group, for the merch page, for the Spotify and Apple Music playlist I put together every week, and the Patreon page. Make sure you go check all that out. Of course, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. Make sure you hit that notification bell so you're notified every time I release new episodes. So this is a question I've been asked a lot over the last, I guess, several years now that I've been back into buying records. And really it comes down to preference. And that's why I said what I prefer. Because, of course, everyone has their own opinions and why they love certain formats. And I think that when I got back into records, I think the big thing that I've noticed right away is the culture that's been built around vinyl records. And record stores are largely responsible for this. The culture that each individual record store builds in their fan base. And it's cool to stand outside for record store day and have conversations about different pressings and the differences between pressings. Or if you're standing in line for like a big release or something like that, it's kind of cool to have those conversations. And even though there are CD communities, I feel like they're not quite the same level as you see with a lot of the tight-knit vinyl community. And that's not to say there's not a culture around CDs, because there is, but it's different when it comes to records. And maybe that's because I interact in it more than I do with a CD culture. But with vinyl records, in particular, you've got so many different variations from each individual release. If you compare, say, the Dark Side of the Moon, which has been pressed a bunch of times over the last 20, 25 years, but each one of those pressings has a very unique style and sound to it, and you really don't have that with CDs. And I think that's why you get some of those really interesting conversations within vinyl collectors that maybe you don't always get with CD collectors. And it's not just the culture in person in store; it's also a culture online in social media, on YouTube. It's really kind of cool to kind of go through it. I feel like I've met so many really great people over the years just because of a shared love of vinyl records. My next reason is one that is very subjective, and everyone's going to have different opinions on this one, but I love vinyl records over CDs and especially streaming because of the warmth and richness of the sound that you get from them. Now, I know CDs can sound great, streaming not so great, but when it comes to records, there's a depth and a richness to vinyl records that I feel is lacking on a lot of CDs. And like I said, I'm gonna throw streaming out the window because CDs, yes, Tidal sounds okay, Apple Music sounds okay, but if you're listening to Spotify, there's a night and day difference between even CDs and what you're getting on that service. I think Spotify, their sound is absolutely horrible. I'm sorry if I offend anyone that's a Spotify lover out there, but vinyl records, the richness of that sound, the a lot of times, especially if you get like an older pressing, it almost has this like lifelike sound that I don't really get on a lot of CDs. I don't want to say that one format sounds better than the other format, because they really don't, especially if you're comparing vinyl to CDs. They're really close, but like I said, I give just a slight edge to vinyl records just because it has more of that authentic sound that I feel is lacking on a lot of CDs. My next point is one that I fell in love with records when I was a kid, and that is the bigger artwork. One of my favorite things to do is looking at the cover, looking at the back cover, going through all that, opening up, especially if it's a gatefold, look at all the stuff on there, reading over all the liner notes and who did what on the album and producers and engineers. You don't get that with it's. I mean, yes, some of that stuff is included in the booklets on CDs, but I'm old and it's kind of hard to read all that really small print, and of course you don't get any of that on a streaming service. So it kind of adds to that to the richness experience of vinyl records when you actually have that tangible object there, kind of looking over it and kind of fully immersing yourself in the artwork and everything that was put into making that album. Especially if you're getting into like specialty pressings and box sets, and there's so many different things that they do with vinyl records that you just don't see them do to the same level with something like CDs. That kind of brings me into my next point, and that is the overall experience of listening to records. It's something that one of my earliest memories as a kid is sitting in my bedroom with one of those like plastic turntables, listening to Thriller and just kind of listening to it over and over again. And, it's the whole experience of opening up the record and putting down the turntable and dropping the needle on there and just kind of sitting down and immersing yourself in the music and going over everything. And it's just, like I said, it's just a process that there is a process with CDs, but it's just not to that same level, I think. And that's that overall listening experience. Kind of sit down and put that whole thing together and really immerse yourself in the music that I think is different when it comes to other formats. Streaming services, streaming music, everything just seems so disposable. And when CDs, there is an experience with CDs, but it's not quite to that same level as vinyl records. And it's just, something that really makes me love vinyl records even more. And I guess I should preface this last point by saying that I don't ever intend to sell my record collection. It'll be something that my kids do once I'm long gone. But there's also resale value to vinyl records that you don't really get, I think, with a lot of CDs. And that's kind of cool. It's kind of a cool aspect to me to, even though, like I said, I don't intend to sell my records, but I mean, I guess I do thin the herd every once in a while. I'll go through a couple times a year and sell off some duplicates, or if I think I've got a better pressing of something, I'll sell the other one. But I think it's a little bit different than the resale value overall. It's kind of cool to go on Discogs, see the value climb in your record collection, and especially if you pick up an album for, I think I picked up the Alice in Chains Unplugged for like $30 or $35 when it was released, which is funny because even at that time I thought that was a lot of money to pay for it, and I passed on it a couple times before I ended up picking it up. But now I go on Discogs and that thing's selling for over $200. It's really interesting to watch some of those albums kind of climb in price, and it's kind of adds to that collectability of vinyl records that you don't really get with CDs. Yes, there are some high dollar CDs out there. I do have some like MoFi Gold Disc CDs that are definitely valuable, but I don't think it's not quite to the same level as you get with a lot of records. But I also think it's kind of a double-edged sword also because you got entities like eBay and Discogs that I think somewhat artificially inflate the pricing of records and makes records overall more expensive. So while it's cool to see your collection climb in price, I also understand that there's kind of a darker backside to it that might hurt a lot of vinyl record collectors just because they can't get pressings because, like I said, you go to a record store and they're pricing everything off of what they're seeing on Discogs, and that might not really be an accurate value of that album. Well, that's all I got for you guys. Thanks for checking the show out. Make sure you drop me a comment down below. Let me know why you guys prefer listening to vinyl records, or why you don't. Why you prefer listening to CDs, or why you prefer listening to streaming. There are other options out there. This is a very subjective topic. I understand that, but I'd love to know what you guys think about it. Like always, if you enjoyed the episode, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Hit that subscribe button down below. That's all I got. Until next time, keep on spinning. Peace.